On behalf of United Consciousness, I welcome
Ms.Patricia Wigley,
Vice President, Australian Association of Yoga Therapists. She has completed her BA Diploma in Yoga from AYTA Yoga Therapist and Ayurveda Counselor. Patricia has been teaching for 30 years. After her yoga teacher training with the AYTA, she completed a postgraduate diploma in counseling at ACAP. And while continuing to teach, pursued study in anatomy and physiology, nutrition and Ayurveda at Nature Care College in Sydney. She completed a 3-year course in yoga therapy with Australian Yoga Therapy in 2013. She has been involved with the AAYT committee for the last 4 years and is past president of the AYTA. Her teaching is centered on yoga therapy and practices from Ayurveda to create balance and promote well-being. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome
Ms.Patricia Wigley.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction, and I feel very honored to be asked to take part in this global conference. So thank you to Dr. Vikrant. And I must say I have enjoyed all the talks and the panel discussion so far, and especially to Dr. Ananda's address. I've admired his teachings for many years, since I first met him in Sydney many years ago, and he graciously was the key presenter at the IYTA International Convention in 2010. And thank you to the panel for that beautiful discussion on spirituality and spiritual beings and being spiritual, which saves me having to define that in my talk. So I was given the subject, love and spirituality. So when I was first asked to give this talk, I wondered where to start with this subject. So I gave it to the universe, and I went about my business for a couple of days. And then driving home one day, I noticed a big sign outside a church saying, "God is love." And I thought, that's a sign. That's a message for me, for my talk. That's where I'll start. So then I thought, as I sat down to write the talk, I thought, what does God is love mean to me? And it was a Christian church, and that I was brought up in the Christian tradition. So this is a familiar teaching. And the first meaning I took of this in my young years was the implication that God is love, but he is separate from us. He created us. He is our Father. He is in heaven, some wonderful paradise we can aspire to go after leaving this life. And if we go with this, how does that affect us and make us feel as human beings? So how did it affect me? I felt separate from God. We are not love. And how do we get some of this love? To receive love, my understanding was we needed to be good, to do the right things, live the right way, and obey the commandments of God. So to earn his love. And I used the pronoun him because that was the one used. In the hymns of my childhood, we sang about God being almighty, immortal, and invisible. And we were often told that as human beings, we were considered sinners and unworthy to gather the crumbs from under his table. Prayer was more a way of supplication, of asking for favors and blessings, and return, if deserving, we might receive his love. So looking at this first interpretation, it seems that God and his love can be seen as very often out of reach. At least that's how I felt. and even irrelevant to our own sense of reality. So, however, visiting those words again, God is love, I can see the seeds of the teachings which became clearer as I began my studies later on in life of the Vedas and yoga and Ayurveda. So I'm just going to quote here from an article by Doug Keller, a great US yoga teacher. He says, the Vedic tradition of India states that there is one absolute which expresses itself as all the individual forms we see around us. While we can certainly enjoy all the aspects of our individuality, we need to recognize that they are all part of a greater universality. And when the great exponent of Advaita, Ramana Maharishi, was asked, what about the others? He replied, there are no others. The Indian saint Anandamayi Ma told us, find the one everywhere and in everything, and there will be an end to pain and suffering. The one is that which connects everything in creation, the underlying field of pure consciousness to which we all belong. And this oneness is our true self, a field of unbounded joy and bliss playing as the universe. It disguises itself as the mind and body and displays itself as the world and the environment. So, from the words, God is love, is the understanding that in the process of creation of all there is, that love is the energy behind all of creation. That therefore love is a part of our human nature too. And this is very different from thinking God is somewhere out there and we are down here. Instead, it is an acknowledgement that having been created, a part of the Creator is also a part of our nature. That is love. We are spiritual beings. Thank you to the panel for their discussion on that. In continual relationship with this source of love, even if unaware of it and seeking it from external sources. So we are given a guide to practices that we can do to connect and relate to this higher being or self. And these are covered in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And in doing so, we are told the nature of our true self may be revealed. So this is indicated in chapter 1, verse 3, and then chapter 4, verse 34, which describes when consciousness settles in its own nature. To me, the true self is that part of our being which is divine love, which underlies our physical nature. So this can be accessed or glimpsed through meditation, through the practices of yoga, and connection, that is relationship with all other living beings and all of creation or nature. Perhaps we have all had a glimpse of this experience while out in nature, gazing with awe at a mountain scene or a place in nature that has some meaning for us, where time seems to stop and we are completely in the moment, at one with our surroundings, ourself, and all that is. Our hearts are full. So the key to having a relationship with God, and therefore love, is just that, relationship. And here I would like to introduce the idea that before we can act from a place of love, we must first learn to love ourselves and connect with that love within. Often we are self-critical and can take on self-destructive habits which separate us from that connection with love within. And this is reflected outwardly in our society as criticism of others, disregard and fear of others, resulting in the violence we see around us. Mr. Desikachar, TKV Desikachar, said that in practicing yoga, our relationships will improve, And as we develop this connection with the divine love within, we then are able to relate in a more compassionate and loving way to those around us. Doug Keller says in his article, life is all about relationships. We are in relationships with our friends and family, the people we work with, even those we met casually in the grocery store or sit next to on a flight. We are in a relationship with our environment and the world around us. And on a subtle level, every cell in your body is in a relationship with every other cell. Considering ourselves as separate from other people creates conflicts ranging from personal disputes to global conflicts. Seeing ourselves as separate from the environment results in the current climate change issues. A breakdown in the body's internal relationships creates the potential for disharmony and disease. Our happiness and well-being are all dependent on the quality of our relationships. Dynamic and harmonious relationships bring us joy, success, and radiant health. Toxic relationships are the pathway to sadness, frustration, and suffering. All relationships, whether we judge them as good or bad, act as guides for growth if we are open to hear their messages. However, all external teachings ultimately lead us to remember that we are our own guru, and all external relationships merge into one relationship, our essential self. By all means, enjoy external relationships, but know that true happiness is not found outside. We must look within. The merging of self, of the individual self, with the consciousness, the universal self, brings the relationship of oneness with the divine. So I come back to that statement, our hearts are full. Because according to the teachings, the heart is the seat of the soul, and it is the individual soul which is connected to the universal soul, which is the divine part of ourselves, which I understand as love. We are at heart spiritual beings. In Lauren Roche's translation of the Vijnana Bhairava, he says, the one who is at play says there is a space in the heart where everything meets. Come here if you want to find me. Mind, senses, soul, eternity, all are here. And again in verse 26, the heart of the universe pulses in all hearts. There is one who is the life in all forms. There is one who is joyful in simply existing in all bodies as all bodies. Explore the life that is your present form. One day you will discover it is not different from the life of the secret one, and your heart will sing triumphant songs of being at home everywhere. At the heart center, we are centered in unconditional love, peace, compassion. Swami Niranjananda from the Satyananda tradition taught once the need for connecting the head with the heart. The clarity of the Ajna chakra, the third eye, with the compassion and unconditional love of the heart when making decisions. When in doubt, to go with the heart. In yoga practices, we are moving prana, the intelligence of life force, to the central energy channel, Sushumna, and encouraging the flow through the chakras, the energy centers, from those in the lower part of the body, which are associated with our healthy functioning in this physical world, and all that is needed for a full life, up to the heart center, where we act from a place of unconditional love, and the higher chakras, which enable us to fulfill our potential here in this life on earth. The goal of our spiritual journey is to awaken from this darkness to light, from ignorance to bliss, from our self-created limitations to freedom, and from fear to unbounded love. This is the message of the mantra Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. If God is then the gift of life which comes, if God is love, then the gift of life which comes from God is also love. And this we can find when we connect to the breath. So, conclusion, I'll finish my talk here. From that first simple statement, God is love, we can see it can lead to where, as spiritual beings, we would like to be fully centered in our own true nature, that of love. If God is love, then the gift of life which comes from God is also love. And as Philip Brooks suggests, be such a person and live such a life that if everyone were as you and every life was such as yours, this earth would be God's paradise. So thank you. I will finish there.
Thank you very much, Patricia ji. It is such enlightening talk, and so nicely you mentioned that the separation, the concept that God is separated from us, and that the separation leads to lack of love, and lack of love leads to the urge that I need to do good things to gain love. But the basic feeling is lacking something. But as you rightly said, that love is the energy behind whole creation, and therefore, and love is a part of my own being. It is my true nature. You quoted Raman Maharshi ji, you quoted Anand Mai ji, and Patanjali Yoga Sutra you quoted. So nicely you mentioned many practical tips. Is that the first thing is to love yourself, connect to yourself, because the disconnect or the separation with self and others leads to conflict. It even impacts on the climate change, disease, disharmony, toxic relationships, and suffering. You end up hurting yourself and others also. So truly mentioned that Astoma Sadgamay, and I'm sure that this message of love through United Consciousness will reach to millions in years to come. And people and experts like you will keep blessing us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vikrant. It's been a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of United Consciousness, I thank
Ms.Patricia Wigley
for coming onto the platform of United Consciousness. Thank you so much.